Welcome to the Wire to Wire podcast. As always, it's me, your host Yusuf. Now, without further ado, let's just get right to it. Now, former NBA superstar and Hall of Famer Allen Iverson has recently been on a media run promoting his latest biography, Misunderstood. Now, since he's my all-time favorite player, it's good to see him out there doing his press run and hearing his thoughts on different subjects. Now, I've been following his career since I was a kid, so I've read previous biographies and seen documentaries made about him. So I am relatively curious to know what is going to be different in this new book, as well as his upcoming docu-series by Amazon Prime that's going to reveal something new that we don't already know about him. Well, some recent details that has just emerged from Iverson himself is that he recently quit drinking alcohol. Now, I will play you guys a clip of Iverson discussing this, and then I'll be back to discuss.
The biggest accomplishment was not on the basketball court.
One of my best decisions that I ever made in my life was to stop drinking.
What was that?
6 months now.
Wow.
Yeah.
How you feeling?
Better than I did when I was doing it. When you get drunk, you're not how you usually are. The more and more I see it on other people, the more and more it makes me happy about the decision. And the more and more I see how the people around me appreciate it, I love it.
So you guys heard what he had to say. Now, for me, this was interesting because I think it was about, I want to say 10 years ago, there was a book by this reporter by the name of Kent Babb, and the book was called More Than a Game. And it was essentially a disparaging book about Iverson. Now, that book was certainly not meant to make him look flattering, nor was it really meant to educate. One of the many assertions that he made in the book was that Allen Iverson struggled with alcoholism. And one of the many allegations that were in that book was that Iverson was drunk during that famous practice rant. Now, shortly after that book came out, Iverson vehemently denied that he ever had any alcohol addiction or a drinking problem. Now, I personally did not believe many, if not any, of the allegations that were made in his book at the time. However, I do believe that it was a problem enough that Iverson decided to quit it altogether, and obviously it was important enough for him to share that information publicly. So I am glad that he discussed this in a public setting. Now, I personally don't consume any alcohol, drugs, intoxicants, none of that stuff. If it was up to me, none of those things would be accessible or available. But that's just me. I just personally believe that they are harmful and that whatever benefits people may believe that they get from it, the harm significantly outweighs the good. The reality is, it is something that is very prominent and accessible in our world. And alcohol addiction does exist, and it is a real thing. There are people out there who are genuinely struggling and are dealing with the negative effects of addiction in whatever capacity it may be. And we live in a world where there are a lot of vices out there. And many of these vices have become accessible and normalized. So it's even harder in people's journey to combat these addictions. But the first step in any battle is the acknowledgement that there is a problem. And I believe that for most of Iverson's adult life, he has been in denial. But as you get older, you start to develop a sense of clarity. And hearing Iverson on this press run speaking as a 50-year-old man, it seems that he has a lot more clarity about himself and his life than he had in the past when he was a lot younger. There are many lessons that he seemed to have learned and grasped now that he just wasn't able to wrap his mind around when he was a lot younger and on top of the basketball world. And this makes me realize that everyone grows and matures at their own pace, at their own time, based on their own lived experiences. And I think Iverson is someone who is now having a moment of clarity, a moment of humility, and has gotten enough reality checks. I think the fact that his career ended very unceremoniously and that he went through the divorce, I think all of that played a role in him having a wake-up call into what he needs to do better as a man in order to evolve and to grow. And I think those rough moments that he hit in his life really served as a wake-up call for him. And I think he has now reached a point in his life where he gets it. So there probably was a point in his life where he could never actually acknowledge that he had a problem or that this was a problem for him. But through his lived experiences, he clearly sees that it was enough of a problem that he decided to quit. And good for him. I'm glad that he made that decision and that choice for his life, for himself, and obviously for his family and his loved ones. And I think if he hasn't experienced the benefits already, that he will. I think he's going to get a lot of fulfillment and joy from quitting alcohol. And even just from a health standpoint, he will benefit from it tremendously, right? He's going to deal with less inflammation, less bloating. It's going to be really good for the liver. And just his overall health and wellness, it's something that will benefit him. He's reaching a critical age of 50. And it's very important, especially at that stage in your life, to take care of your health and be proactive. So far, if you have no problems, it's a good sign. And now you want to keep that momentum going. And that goes for everybody, not just him. All of us have an obligation to do our part to make sure that we are protecting and preserving our health as much as we can. And the younger we start, the better it is as we advance into our older ages. And like I said earlier, alcohol is just one of the many types of forms of addiction that exist. But there are different types of addictions out there, whether it's substances, adult films, and you know the kind of adult films that I'm talking about. Fapping, sex, gambling, video games, you name it. There are countless types of addictions out there, but unfortunately we live in a society where a lot of these things are very accessible and available, and really it's rampant. So it is certainly easy to fall into addiction, and it is also really difficult to get out of it. So that's why it is important to take that first step in acknowledging and recognizing that there is a problem. And some people can even recognize that there is a problem, but they find it very difficult to acknowledge it is a problem. So there's even that internal battle going on. But the important step to take is first acknowledging the problem. Now, despite the fact that, yes, we do live in a society and a world where these things are very accessible, one of the many benefits of the world that we live in too is that there are a lot of communities and resources and information available to also be able to combat these things. So many times when people are battling with these addictions, they're actually not alone. There are thousands, if not millions of people struggling with something similar. And many of them are not even just online. You can find them even in your own local communities. But it's important for people to just be able to reach out and connect now that the infrastructure is there and the means and resources are there and available to be able to do that. So it's important to recognize in this journey that you are not alone. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be challenging. There's going to be internal battles that people will face. And there's also going to be external battles as well with all of the stimuli that exists around us. So I can empathize and understand with what people go through. But it is something that can be accomplished with the right support system, with the right community, and also taking the right actions. But I'm personally glad that he shared this, because him sharing that experience may be the catalyst for someone else to hear and may help them decide that they also want to make that change. Now, like I said, me personally, I've never gotten into the consumption of these type of things, but I can also recognize and respect that to an extent, that is a level of privilege that I have, but also too, it doesn't make me oblivious to the struggles that other people face and have in their life as well. That's why I'm not going to undermine it or anything like that. But I do believe that it is critical for people to try their best and get the help that they need to get better. That first step is the acknowledgement, right? And to have someone like Iverson, someone who many people revere and hold in high regards to, right? To have someone of his stature have this kind of conversation and speak about this, I believe it does a lot of good, because it just may make someone else take a look at themselves and say, hey, if someone like him can acknowledge that he had a problem and that he quit, then maybe I too will also have the courage to want to quit as well. So it's something that's good. It can possibly have an influential effect in a positive way on someone to want to make a difference in their life. So anything that inspires someone to want to do goodness, I think that's a great thing. And I'm glad that he took that step in his life. And I hope he can continue his sobriety journey and that he remains steadfast on this path. And I hope there's other people out there who can gain the courage to be able to want to confront this and overcome their problems as well. Because I think it's important for people to try to be their best selves and try to strive to it. But there's sometimes obstacles and things that get in the way for whatever reason. Everyone has their own challenges and their own battles that they're dealing with. But I hope they can find the strength to be able to overcome it as well. Because I believe on the other side of that struggle that there is a lot of goodness out there. And I believe that with all the struggles that life has, that there are healthy, adaptive ways that people can cope with it rather than some of the vices that exist out there. But that's all I got for you guys today. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and share it with your people. You guys can also follow me and the podcast on social media. You guys can check out my books. All of the links will be in the description. Until next time.